it. Nicole, I don't know if you heard our discussion a few minutes ago. Woody and I were talking about how leading up to this weekend, for the last couple of 3 weeks, a lot of people have talked about and written articles about whether or not there's anybody in the field who can beat Kentucky. And we heard names like Arizona and Northern Iowa and Duke, etc.
SMU.
Yeah, Woody thought SMU could beat them. After what you saw last night, after what you've seen in Kentucky's first 3 games, does anybody have a shot in hell at beating Kentucky, Nicole?
I think I've been seeing them a lot lately. I've seen them since the end of the regular season, through the SEC tournament, through last weekend in person. And, I personally don't think anyone will beat them. But I do think, and I've been saying for about 2 months now, that I think Notre Dame would be a really interesting matchup for them. And so I'm really glad that we're actually going to get to see it, because I think that you have a team that's so gifted offensively and has great guards. And I think that's going to be interesting to see, because they're going to hit open shots. They're going to hit some contested shots. They're going to be able to, I think, keep pace and stay within the game a little bit longer than some of the other teams we've seen, certainly not West Virginia. But I just think it's just going to take way too much. I mean, Kentucky, you would have to have 4 or 5 guys have an off night, and the other team has to play perfect for them just to have a shot to beat them. So, I think they're going to have the toughest games are the ones that are left now. But I just, it's kind of unfathomable to think that they're going to lose at this point. And I think that even beyond, there's been so much talk about, egos and sharing minutes and things. The flip side of that also benefits Kentucky is that their guys are a little fresher because they've only been playing 20 minutes a game, 25 minutes a game. So, they just wear everyone out, and they're going to continue to do that.
That's a great point.
Against some of these better teams.
Yeah, great point on the playing time. They're just not tired.
Yeah. No, and not like they would be, but I mean, that was one of the selling points when they told these kids on, the 2 platoons and the sharing and all of that was, we're going to be fresh. And you see that at the end of the games when they just pull away from teams, 12-minute mark on in the second half. They just wear them down. And it's, they're just going to continue to do that, I think, against these teams down the stretch.
Nicole, I think this is Woody. I think the only chance that teams have against Kentucky is if the NCAA passes that rule that Rick Pitino wants to put in about you can go straight from the high schools to pro basketball again, as you did prior to 2006, and maybe pass the rule right now and all those guys turn pro and play in the NBA playoffs, which has been brought up. But I gave West Virginia a better chance than a lot of teams because Kentucky, the previous game, had shot 37%. We had Dick Vitale here a week or so ago, and he was talking about if you're going to get Kentucky, you better get them in the first game of a weekend, because then they have time to get accustomed to where they're playing and they know exactly who they're playing. Would you agree with that evaluation, that if you're going to at least be close to them, you don't want to get them on the first part of playing in a certain locale, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I get that. I wouldn't want to play them at all if I'm an opposing team or coach. But yeah, because I think you're right. It gives them more time to prepare. But honestly, after spending some time around this program, I don't think that they game plan too much for the opponents. They know that if they just play well and they say the best versions of themselves, each individual player, then the team is going to be basically unbeatable. And they know that. So I think they kind of frame everything and focus on that, as opposed to scouting, from a player standpoint, as opposed to preparing for an individual, worrying about the scout team and trying to, this team's tendency is this. They focus on doing what they do well, and that kind of makes it pretty easy, I think, for them to prepare for all of this. But I think, as an opponent, you might have that extra week. You might, get a little bit discouraged if you watch some of their film against some of these really good teams that they've just kind of throttled this year. And B, you can't simulate their lane probably on your team. So, it's still difficult to practice and really prepare for what you're actually going to be going against. Because, you might have tall guys, whatever. But you don't have, it's not just a bunch of 7-footers and a bunch of 6'6" guards. And you just can't simulate it. So I think I would, if you have an extra week or, versus the 2-day turnaround, I agree that I guess it's better to have them with the short turnaround, but like I said, I just don't think that they change much of what they do based on who they're playing. So that's the dangerous part.
Well, Nicole, the implication there is that if you have enough time, you might be able to outcoach John Calipari, even if you don't have talent that's commensurate with Kentucky. So let me ask you this: we know he's a great recruiter.
I think
That's obvious.
If Calipari did show up to the gym, they'd still win.
Well, that could be, and that's where I'm going with this, Nicole. We know he's a great recruiter. He can out-recruit everybody. He does it every year. The question is, how good of a coach do you believe he is? Is he one of the top 2 or 3 coaches in this field that's left?
Well, I think that's, you could ask a bunch of different people that question and get a bunch of different answers. Because you could say, I mean, because there's some of the uproar about John Calipari not winning the Basketball Writers Association Coach of the Year award. And then there was, kind of spotlight shown on, Coach K has never won it either. And so some of these teams that have an expectation of being good because they have all of the talent, does that mean that the coach should get credit for recruiting the talent and for getting them to go there? And so I think, I've been saying it all year, but I've been so impressed by, and I think it is a part of coaching beyond, I think he doesn't get enough credit from, like in-game coaching, but to do what they're doing with that much talent, yes, they could show up at a gym and win X amount of games this year because they did play a lot of inferior teams. But to not have, and, maybe they had a couple little bumps and whatever that they kept internal in the locker room, but to not have issues, really, to not actually have issues with egos of kids who have been told since they're, 10 years old that you're the best thing since sliced bread, and getting them to, say, I'm going to play 20 minutes, I'm going to average 9 points a game as I'm trying to go to the NBA. I mean, that takes a lot of work. That's like not super easy. You could put a bunch of different coaches with this roster, and I don't think they would be undefeated because I think it takes a certain psychological framework, approach, and relationships with individual players to actually get guys to do that. And these are guys who've been told that they're so great, that they're going to the NBA. They've been told that for years, and then it's just like, for 7 months you have to buy into this completely different mindset. So I think that's part of coaching, and I think that he should get a lot of credit for that.
Let's turn to tonight's game. There were actually 3 pretty good games last night. I thought Wichita State hung in there for a long time. Xavier made a real good game out of its affair with Arizona. Do you expect one specific game tonight to really shine over the others, or how do you look at all the matchups, if you will?
Well, I think Utah Duke has the potential to be the best game of the night. I think both of those teams are Final Four caliber teams. They're both kind of peaking at the right time. It's interesting because obviously Duke's led by, there's 3 incredible freshmen. They've got senior guard and Quinn Cook. So they've got like that balance and some experience and like some incredibly good freshman talent. And they have not been overwhelmed by the moment or the tournament or anything. They've played so well. And then you've got Utah kind of reemerging under Larry Kristoyak. And they hadn't. I saw them lose to Arizona earlier this year, and the knock was that they couldn't win the big games. Like, they were getting there. They were getting close, but they couldn't knock off like an Arizona. So, yet they've done that in the NCAA tournament. They've elevated. They've won the big game. So, I think that'll be a really good game. And I think who wins that will, I would expect them to beat the winner of UCLA Gonzaga and get to the Final Four from that region. But I also love this. I like the Zags team. I think they're really deep. I think this could be the team that gets to the Final Four for Gonzaga. So, I think that site is very interesting to me. I'm, of course, in Syracuse, the other 2 games. I've got like an ACC game with NC State and Louisville, who already played this year. And then Michigan State, Oklahoma, I think will be a really good one. That's the late one here. But, so I'm more intrigued, actually, with the games that are not at my own site. But so I'll have to keep an eye on them, on the computer screen while watching some games here in Syracuse.
Nicole, who's at the top of your bracket? Who do you have in the final game, and who's winning?
Well, in case you couldn't tell from my praise of Kentucky, I have Kentucky winning it all. And I just, it's hard when you just see them play. When they hit that gear where everything is working, they're actually hitting their outside shots, and it's just they are unbeatable, and they've been unbeatable when they haven't looked that way, but they just, if they can just flip that switch on against some of these great teams, there's no way to take them down. So I think Kentucky's going to win it all. It's not very original. I know a lot of people who, if you're being strategic in a bracket pool, I know the strategy is not to pick Kentucky to do it, since everyone's going to pick them to do it, but I just think it's too much. And going back to what I said earlier, I think they just wear you down. And so even if you think you got them for a half or for 30 minutes, they always pull away at the end. And I don't see that changing.
Who do you have them beating?
That's a good question, actually.
You didn't fill out a bracket? Who do you have them beating?
I did, but I am a little worried that is the side of the bracket that imploded on me. So let me double check. I have them beating Arizona next in the Final Four, and then so I did implode a little bit.
Who'd you have?
LSU.
No. I had where is my bracket? I had Virginia getting out of the East.
Yeah.
No, or maybe Villanova. Yeah, no, I had Villanova. So,
never mind, Nicole. If you can't remember, it wasn't that good anyway. I'd like to. We'd like to find out from you. How can people reach out to you, because you do an exceptional job? Your Twitter handle, your email address. If people want to continue this conversation, and maybe you'll even tweet out who you have in the Final Four now.
Yeah, I would like a redo for that. Yeah, my Twitter handle is Nicole Auerbach, AUERBACH, and then email nauerbach@usatoday.com.
And my final question, which I'm trying to ask everybody, because I find this fascinating, we asked Rocky's pitcher, I did, what he would do if he wasn't pitching, and he said he'd like to race monster trucks. And then we had another player who said he'd like to work in an emergency room at a hospital. If you weren't so successful as a sports writer with USA Today, what would you be doing in your life?
Can I say I want to be a professional baseball player?
Sure you can. Sure you can. Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. But I will. I mean, when I was in third grade, I thought I was going to be the first female professional baseball player. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go back to my third grade self, and I would have broken some barriers.
Yeah.
We wish you luck in your pursuit, Nicole.
What's your speed on the radar gun?
Oh, I don't even remember. I was a softball pitcher in high school, so I was all right.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
That has passed, but no, I don't really have a good alternate career path. But those are some good ones. Monster trucks is not what I would do.
Nicole, really appreciate your time. Enjoy the games you're covering tonight, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, Nicole Auerbach, who writes about college basketball for USA Today. This show sponsored every Friday by John Elway Cadillac of Park Meadows, Colorado's number.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on elwaydealers.com.